Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given rather than explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. Muhammad Ali. Welcome to Coach2Scale, how modern leaders build coaching cultures. I'm your host, Matt Benelli. Join me as we build a community of like-minded professionals who share the belief that effective coaching improves the performance of every team member. Our mission is to help leaders become better coaches. The Coach2Scale podcast is sponsored by Coachum, the world's first AI coaching execution platform that leverages evidence-based coaching to increase quota attainment. And with that, let's get started. Today's guest is someone who I've had the pleasure to get to know over the past few years. He's a sales leader who personifies the phrase, impossible is nothing. More importantly, he's got a knack for getting his team to adopt the same mindset. And we're going to talk about that. He's done this building global teams at Falcon IO and Brandwatch. He's currently the Chief Revenue Officer at VO, and coming to you from the city of Spires, beautiful Copenhagen, Denmark. Ollie Quittek, welcome to Coach2Scale.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
Doing well, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, look, this is great. We've had these types of conversations so many times, virtually with a coffee or maybe something else. You introduced me to the world of Aperol spritzes when in Copenhagen. Yeah, I made fun of you, but then found myself drinking them as well. So anyway, looking forward to having the conversation. Let's jump right in. Ollie, you've been doing this for a good amount of time at a high level, and you hear a lot of things. And I know you have a lot of opinions. You have a point of view. You hear a lot of stuff that you might think is complete BS. What are some of the myths? What's one myth maybe that you hear all the time that people believe, perhaps even you believed at some point in your career, but now you recognize is not the way to go?
I guess that's the perfect segue to your opening quote, right? For me, really is impossible is nothing. And it's interesting what you actually can achieve personally, and especially also as a group, once you internalize that it's a dare, it's potential. There's always something else to get done on top of what you think you can do. And I think that the real power is once you unlock this, not only in yourself, but in an entire team, and then see once this theme of impossible is nothing actually gets a life of its own, and then see this trickle down the teams, the organization, and see the outcome of like a mindset at the end.
So, and so we hear impossible. We hear that word used in different places. What are some of the places you and other sales leaders hear that word impossible come up?
That's a pretty broad question. I guess.
But is it like my hitting my number is impossible? This penetrating this account. I mean, we hear it in areas like that, right?
Yeah, I guess at my age and with the experience, I'd say all of that's time and effort problems, right? This is more like if you get resourced enough and you can see that the task at hand is actually achievable based on the resources you have, the time at hand, like the sales material, all the stuff that you need to be successful, then you can start chipping away, and most likely you're going to solve the problem. I think impossible from the quote is bigger than that, right? It's in my book, this is really like bringing people together around an idea and creating almost culture, I'd say, around a theme. And I think that catches you by surprise sometimes, positively as well as negatively, because at least I was, when I implemented this at Brandwatch and Falcon, I was out of my own depth. I didn't see what I actually triggered with a team, but it was great to live lived this with a team for, I guess, a good amount of 2 years. So yes, I
Yeah.
guess the impossible piece where you look up your playbook and then you go through, okay, I have to hit a sales number. So how many A's do I have? How many phone calls then can they make? How many SDRs do I have? That's almost like a sales operations problem where you can find some of the pointers and answers in a spreadsheet. But once it comes to the mindset, I think that then I'd say it becomes a question around authenticity, who you are as a person. How do you act and interact with people? What's your thing? What's your flag? What's your values? What can people actually rally around? Why would they go to war for you? Why would they crack this account open? And I think that's the topics that have really caught my attention lately, because then if you get this right, then there's a multiplier effect across the team.
Yeah, building off that multiplier effect, I know you have a point of view on whether or not uh, things always need to be changing, right? There's a saying in our business, Ollie, the only thing constant is change. But I know you and I have had conversations that some things don't always need to be innovated, right? And specifically with regard to, let's say, a training curriculum, for example,
Yeah.
right? You can change that, have the flavor of the month every week, every month, every quarter, or you can stick to something that works. What's your thought on the notion that curriculums always need to be innovated?
Yeah, I think my current self would give my younger self the piece of advice that innovation is great, but you can overdo it. And I guess experience has shown that we humans have to hear things more than one time to really understand it, internalize it, and being able to execute it. To just pouring additional knowledge and additional input on people, I guess, makes you as a leader feel good, because then you think, now everybody knows what I know, so let's go and conquer the world. When as in reality, most people will have gotten a fraction of what you just told them. So most likely sticking with the basics and rehearsing them until you really know that everybody is now on the same page before opening the next topic, providing new input. I guess that's the advice to my younger self. Don't get, lost in new stuff. Make sure that the bases are hit, like that you control the controllables and you feel good about the engine that you're building.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this too, but I hear a lot where there's young men and women earlier in their career, maybe late 20s, early 30s, and they go through a training and they're like, I already know this. I already know this. And when I speak with the sales leaders, they're like, yeah, they've been introduced to the concept, but more often than not, they're not applying it consistently day in and day out. They might know they need to do it, but their actions speak so loud you can't hear their words. If that makes sense. So I think that's what you're saying about just kind of drilling the basics over and over until it becomes second nature, whatever is important for that business, right?
100%. And I guess we commercial people and potentially even salespeople in particular are very guilty of that, right? You're very engaged in the moment. Most likely you're not super prepared. And then somebody says something that's very logical and that you've heard before, and you go, I know this. That's how I do it. But if you had to explain it back to the person, most likely would struggle, let alone implement it like in your day-to-day action. And I think that's the
Hmm.
difference, right? Understanding something and believing in something and then actioning it is two different things. And I see this with my sons, right? They're both bilingual. I speak German to them all the time. And even though they understand me, if I told them now speak German back to me, they still wouldn't, right? Because that's not where they've put enough energy. And I think that's how we work.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so, ha, two words come to mind, Ollie. One is mindset, and the other one is vulnerability. Uh, can you touch on both of those? What's the importance of each of those words when it comes to building and leading, and those that execute for on your team? How important is mindset and vulnerability?
Yeah, let's start with the vulnerability piece, because I guess that's closer to who I am as a person. I think mindset might even be like a side product of vulnerability for some of us.
Well, mindset is impossible as nothing. That's a mindset, right?
In
Like
that regard,
that.
yes, mindset in a broad term could be anything, but how do you go about achieving what you set your mind to, right? And then I guess if you peel the onion back, vulnerability, I think definitely plays a role. It also adds authenticity to it, like really caring for what you trying to achieve and the people that you're achieving it with, like caring for the journey and the individual that accompany you on this journey. And I guess once you start off in this direction, then it's different than closing a deal, right? Then closing the deal is not the result; it's the side product of this journey that you're on. And I think that's part of the mindset where I've experienced around impossible is nothing, and the theme that we implemented at Brandwatch, that if you actually can create an atmosphere where people feel they belong, when you can create an atmosphere where you recognize the people for who they really are as humans and not as professionals, or not limited, but see it as a whole. And then also have, I guess, created a culture and atmosphere around that it's okay to fail. It's okay to mess things up, and being there for one another and really care for the people, and then subsequently also the outcome. I think that instills trust in people, and that also gives people like this. We always say you have to do the extra mile, but what does this mean? But I think if you're truly happy with what you do and who you are and who you do it with, then you're doing the extra mile. You don't even think about it. I think that's part of impossible is nothing, just changing the mindset around how businesses have worked or sales teams have worked traditionally.
There's a lot of words in our business. There's a lot of cliches, go the extra mile. And they're endless. The question then becomes, okay, what does that mean? How do you what do you do with that?
Mhm.
What does impossible is nothing mean? What does it mean? It's okay to fail, right? Oh, there's all these sayings, but fail forward fast. You got to
Yeah.
build trust, right? All these things. Um, but I saw, I observed you doing just that, putting it into action and building a team that came to see each other as people, as humans, not just as fellow AEs, for example. Can you walk through how and why you did that?
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think it was Q3 of 2022 when we didn't quite hit the mark, and the team wasn't in the best shape. And I guess I always had the ambition on the quarterly kickoffs to look back, look forward, be a little bit inspirational. But this was like a pivotal moment, I think, for the team, where we had to pick one another up. And instead of, I guess, showcasing all the stuff that hadn't happened and how shit we were, I was just talking about myself and putting the quote out from Muhammad Ali in the beginning, and then walking people through all my failures in life, and all the things that I thought were impossible for me. And it's I guess simpler stuff like moving from Germany to Denmark, and making a life for myself here. I also was like my math teacher when I was 19 telling me that I was so stupid that I would cleaning streets. That was the top of the pops that she could envision for me. And this sat with me for quite some years, because she was a figure of authority. And I actually believed that, she knows something that I don't know. And it's back to the quote, right? This impossible is a dare. It's not it's like the small people thinking you can make yourself free from all of that. And I came with quite a few examples, and I think the gist of it was that we all, as humans, we when I read the quote from Muhammad, and we, I guess, older generations, we even know who the guy was, right? But I think what happens oftentimes is you get watery eyes, you get emotional, and then your brain discards this feeling within minutes because you realize I'm not from that time. I'm a European. I'm not a US citizen. I'm not an athlete. I'm not all those things that Muhammad was. So I don't have to do what Muhammad did. And by the way, it's also impossible for me to do the same stuff. And then you sit back in this emotional feeling where you feel connected and you actually believe that it's possible. It waves off pretty fast. So I think my attempt was to find examples that would resonate with my group so that we could live this. And we were like at least 30-40% expats on the team. So by stuff like mentioning that impossible was to move from one country to the other, you also, I guess, give the badge for all the others that did the same. Hey, you did something that was impossible. They didn't mostly even realize that this was really something. It's not that easy. So now you're lifting them up from the ground and you say, hey, you did great. You achieved that already. And then also, I guess, obviously talking and openly talking about the skeletons in our closet and the demons that we fight with personally also lifts people up then fight the same fights, just on a different court and maybe with different topics. But it makes it okay, makes it good that you actually face your demons, face your inefficiencies, deficiencies, and make this, I guess, part of who you are. And at the end of the day, a strength. And I guess what happened after I did my inspirational spiel, I already lined up a couple of people from the team that would share their experiences.
So I want to jump in there, Ollie. I want to jump in. When you say you already lined up, because one of the things that people always reach out to me and say that they want to see and hear from these podcasts is actionable ideas, right? So like, what can they do? Not that they would do exactly what, let's say, you're doing here, but they can think of a similar, thing to do that would accomplish the same goal. But this little nuance to what you just said, you had previously lined up a couple of people that were gonna keep the party going, so to speak. They were gonna chime in, not just you, someone else. And I think that's important for people watching that are going to try to do something like this. It's important to bring in your inner circle and get them, tell people, a couple of people, trusted people, what you're doing, and see if there's something that they can add to this and make sure that they do it. So it makes it further makes everybody feel a little bit more comfortable sharing. So I didn't want to paint over that too quickly, but I'm sorry, keep going.
No, very fair point. I think at the end, like looking back at the very many people that jumped on the mic and did an impossible is nothing, how we call it. It was like every all hands meeting, every other week, somebody, maybe even 2-3 people would grab the opportunity. It was totally voluntary. That was the only rule. You can't be forced. You can only be asked. And then you have the right to say no. And that was totally fine and respectable. And that's how we ran this. But I guess once you have people opening up and talking about, we heard stories about people going through a divorce and then really feeling good about the team itself and how much of like family the team represented for them going through their divorce and how much strength they got from working within this team. You can't beat that. We had people talking about death, people talking about one that still stands out is we had a runner, like a real athlete that did marathon semi-professional, and he was getting money from Nike for every mile that he ran. And he didn't want to get paid. He wanted them to pay his father's village somewhere in Africa so that they could buy or build a concrete road to the main road so that they could get better supplies. And then you start seeing so many facets of the individuals behind the roles. And you see that an SDR can lead 350 people globally and inspire this entire team within 10 minutes. by sharing these experiences and stories around when they thought they did something impossible and they did it anyways. And once you add to this thing really gets a life of its own. And I guess my job at the end was really just asking people, hey, would you do me the honor? Would you do us the honor? Would you grab the mic? Would you walk us through like your experiences? And the funny thing is, out of, I guess, 67 presentations, we had only 2 or 3 that actually talked about how they closed the deal. And I found that funny, right? When it comes to the big themes and what really ties people together and you feel good about being part of something, it's not closing a deal. It's the bigger items.
You know, people don't care what you know or how much you know until they know that you care about
Yeah.
them. And we're talking about ways to build trust on a team and bring a team together. I mean, I just think this is such a fantastic example. You're getting people to personalize their experience and not just what they do, but why they do it. Because look, everybody, like you said, I mean, not everybody, but over a third of the people were expats on the team. I think what you said, 34%. Moving from Germany to Denmark, moving from France to Denmark, wherever it may be, that happens all the time. And most of the folks watching this are in the States, but it's like moving from one state to the other in some ways. Moving from one part of the U.S. from Boston to California. When anyone moves from one state to the other around here, Ollie, there's trepidation, there's fear. I'm moving out of my comfort zone.
That's
I can only imagine, like when you're moving from one country to another, that fear is exacerbated, and so it's real. And all those expats had it. No, I bet not one of them was like, "Oh, this is easy. I'm just going to do it," and didn't run into some sort of roadblock or question. Why the hell did I, late at night, why the hell did I do this at some point? A lot of people were told or made to feel like they were stupid. Yes, most people were made to feel, the school system is structured where the really, really smart people are in the advanced class. Well, if I'm not in the advanced class, that means I'm not as smart. And then if I'm not in the second class, if I'm in the third class, what does that mean? Right. And so sometimes we're made to feel a certain way just by the structure, but you were actually told that, right? I think what you said is a teacher told you that you were stupid.
Yeah. I guess that's the 90s for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's beyond words, but also, so everyone can relate. And most leaders that were senior VPs and CROs like yourself want to portray this image of I'm smart. I know I have all the answers. That's why I'm the boss. But instead, you the opposite way. So what we would call a pattern interrupt and told the truth. And the truth is people move. The truth is people are made to feel inferior. The truth is people get divorced. People lose loved ones. And these issues are all things that get in the way of that perfect execution that we want from a salesperson. And when you bring it all together and you get people to highlight, that these things that are going on in their life and that are bugging them, it really humanizes everybody and gets people working together as a team. What would you say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at least I can say this for myself, and generalizing, I'd imagine that we all are on our quest to make us worthy of the love of others. At least this is, I think, what gets me out of bed. And how do you be worthy then? And I guess this is by loving and caring for others and building a framework where sales will always be about the numbers, right? But if you can achieve the numbers by taking a different path, most likely you create a different environment where you hit the numbers way more often with way more fun. I think what we've seen on the team is, and that's this impossible is nothing sounds crazy, right? If you think about it, but very tangibly for a sales organization, what happened, right? End of quarter, I knew none of my guys would send back a deal. They would close everything. People that were on 30% target achievement, they would struggle for the last deal, because if that was the deal that got us over the line, this deal was as important as all the other 100 deals that we had closed up until that point. And we wouldn't be successful without that deal. I guess if you're so far behind, the regular sales guy who switched on was going, if I close this one next time, I get 3 times the commission. So I send back it. Nobody will ever know. That's one example, right? Then it's around waterfall. That's also a picture that we had. If everything is good at the top, you trust your people. I trusted my direct management team basically with my life. And they start trusting their management team, and their management team starts trusting their management team, and so on, until you hit the individual contributors and everybody works around trust. And this thing goes up and down. That's pretty hard to kill. It's pretty hard to fail with a structure like that. Because if everybody every day does his or her best to his or her best ability with fun and like fiery eyes and want to get something done and achieved together, and you're not doing it for you only, but you're also doing it for the guy next to you, because you feel you can't let the guy next to you down who is doing this also, then I guess hitting numbers and digesting curveballs and dealing with all sorts of stuff that is headed sales' way or go-to-market teams' way gets a different perspective. And I think that's exactly the thing. The different perspective makes you so much easier or more capable to overcome stuff. And then we back to what you said initially, right? The mindset. If you do impossible is nothing for breakfast, then you can deal with so many more curveballs in deals, with setbacks, with everything, because you believe that at the end you will win this thing. And then it's just so different.
And Ollie, you mentioned the word fun a couple of times. I know a lot of leaders in this business that would like squint their eyes, shake their head, like, well, fun. Like, what do you mean? Like, the job is to hit the numbers. It's not about fun. It's about hitting the numbers. Oh, why does fun? Why is that important?
So you can't argue with it. Everything in sales is more fun once you hit the numbers, for sure. I feel exactly the same. It's difficult celebrating when you're in index 80 and think this was the best quarter on the planet. But I also do believe that there's so many things that you can't control, especially when you manage global teams or bigger teams, where you don't have like a strong personal relationship as a leader to everybody on the team, where you have to manage through others, and maybe these people have to manage also through others. What do you fall back on? And then it's culture. And I think fun is an element. If people wake up in the morning and they're looking forward to go to work, not to meet their co-workers, but to meet their friends and to having a good time in the office or wherever they work, also remotely, and having good interactions on Slacks or whatever the means of communications are, and they have a fun experience, you just stay longer. You just work a little bit harder. You just do all the things that you don't even think about because it's part of what you just very naturally do. Then it's like, how do you define fun? What's a fun experience? And we called it also when we obviously also laid people off, and we had performance improvement plans, and we were strict on what's acceptable and non-acceptable behavior. But once you're doing this all together, and also already then in the interviewing process can say, hey, we have impossible is nothing as a culture. This is how we operate. Everybody brings him or herself full on. We do the best we can. If it doesn't happen, then we figure that out. But it's to protect the organism of the 350 people and not to punish the individual. And this also changes the dynamics in difficult conversations. And I think then at the end, some people, they succeed, some don't. But I would imagine that most of the people that have been part of the team or still are part of the team would say it was fun being on this team.
And you brought up the point about critical or difficult conversations. It changes the dynamic of the difficult conversations. And I just had this conversation with a previous guest, Doug May, and Doug talked about conversations are easier and more effective. Difficult conversations are easier and more effective when it comes from the heart. And the other person knows it's coming from the heart and it's coming from a good, positive place, not someone trying to pull rank or be a jerk. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're here for a reason. And so, but if everyone trusts each other, when you have to have the difficult conversation, it's easier to deliver and it's easier to receive. I think that's part of what you're saying.
Yeah, that's part of what I'm saying. And again, I guess everybody knows that you're not at work it's not a social club, right? You're there for a reason. There are some objectives that you have to meet to have, like, as a company, the reason to keep existing, to service your customers, to doing all the things that the company has set out to achieve and to do. So I think looking at people also as mature adults that know that's the baseline, and taking the conversation on that level, then you only basically can have good conversations. Then it's not about you didn't do your job and it didn't work out of these reasons, but it's okay. Maybe you have a learning experience here and you should do something else. Let me help you figure out what that is.
Yeah. Let me help you find a place where you'll be happier and more effective. So this all ties into, this is all well and good, but it takes the right ingredients. It takes it. You have to have the right people on board to execute all this. What are some must-have attributes you're looking for in the hiring and selection process when you're bringing people onto your team?
Obviously, that very much depends on the role. I think when it comes to my direct reports at Falcon and Brandwatch, I was so blessed that these guys have been on the team. I think some I inherited, some I figured had the potential to grow way beyond the place where they were. And I think the pivotal moments also in those relationships been very personal moments. It's beyond losing a deal or hitting a target. It is basically believing in them, all of them, in moments when it would have been the easiest to fire them or to accuse them of failure, to rapping it in their faces that they did a shit job. And I think this is exactly also what I again believe that we humans do, is like this carries more weight to be loved in a situation or cared for when it's difficult, and you'll pay this back tenfold because you expect the opposite. And can you have these experiences across the board a couple of times and then have it in the waterfall again, where this becomes part of the culture and how the business is operating? Then you're building a loyalty that I guess you can have your LinkedIn inboxes filled. Nobody is responding to any of this stuff because everybody is in a good place. And let me illustrate this. So what we did is, one of our top performing AEs in Melbourne had his building redone. So the building was redone. He couldn't work. It's like so much noise for the entire working day. And we could see in his numbers, the deals were dropping. He couldn't focus. We rented an Airbnb for him for 2 months and just paid this so he could go to the Airbnb, have nice and quiet numbers back up. Did we have to do this as a business? No. This guy loved this for so long, and it became a fantastic story, by the way, also on how you very tangibly can make a difference for people as a company. Another example is one of my directs had like an illness in the family and had to go abroad for some time. the easiest would have done to tell him, listen, this is impossible. You need to hand in your resignation, then we revisit this, or you have to take the time off unpaid. And that if that's what you want to do, we figured out a way how we could work anyways. And maybe he only achieved index 80, but getting this feeling of I'm not on the out, I'm part of this, people have my back. That's when you get people to do index 150 for you for so many years after. And I guess I could go on telling those stories. It's basically going out
Yeah.
of your way as a leader and as a business and finding the creative solutions for the people that the people actually really do appreciate, because they know it's not what you have to do, but something that you do because of them, and they will pay you back tenfold.
And other people see that. The person who the company rented the Airbnb for, that benefited that person in Melbourne. But other people saw that that happened. The person who was sponsored to take care of their overseas travel, to deal with their issues and not fired or didn't have to go on unpaid leave, right? Other people saw that. There's a guest that I had on the show, and Christina, and she talked about how an individual promoted her, her boss promoted her while she was on maternity leave, right?
Mm.
And so that helped her, that made her feel better about
Yeah.
taking some time off with her family and then coming back. But it didn't just benefit her, because the whole team, all of the other, especially all of the other women, saw that and were like, wow, like this, I want to run through walls for this guy
Yes.
Tony, and I want to work for this company. So that's phenomenal stuff. And I know you could go on forever. That's what the company and you did for your people. What about things that your someone on your team very recently or in the past, like what's something that an example of something somebody on your team has done to impress you lately?
So Vio is a Copenhagen-based startup within SaaS management and procurement. And I'm doing the full journey from 0 million ARR, hopefully to 100 mil once again. This is a little bit of a different ball game, but one of my APAC guys, he phoned me up the other day and said, "Hey, I need to get on this." And I said, "Dude, it's not possible. We still have to build a critical mass of clients here in Europe. I'm happy to, try to figure out, can we close some APAC customers, and in 6 months let's have the conversation again, and maybe, maybe there's an opening there." And he said, "Boss man, you got this all wrong. I want on now." Like, what do you mean? "I work for you commission only. I want on this journey with you because of the past that we had. If you're doing it, I believe that there's something there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. I want in early. I want the career. I want to become the GM of APAC by getting in early." So he's in now. And I
Wow.
think that's stuff that impressed me lately the most, where you see that, I guess, impossible is nothing, and what it has done to us as a group, but also very much to myself and the relationships to my people, that this is not done once you swap jobs or you change organizations. This is your network. Most often, I guess it's even becoming your friends. And then there's this dynamics where I'd never thought that somebody would do this with me, for me, one more time. And then you're like, no, there is somebody. And this basically there's more of those experiences. And then you just know you're doing right by people, which makes me a happy camper.
Yeah. What an awesome story. And it really ties back to impossible is nothing, where somebody, still half a world away in Melbourne, Australia, or somewhere in Australia, calls you up and says, I want to work with you because I believe in you, and I want to do it so much that I will do it for commission only until we can help this company grow. That's how much I want to be part of this. That says a lot about the company, I'm sure, but the company's just starting out. That says a lot about you personally. And speaking about you personally, Ollie, what drives you? Like, why is all this important to you?
So now I'm gonna get the watery eyes, almost like this intended, but I'll give you the God's honest truth is, and here it comes. I think it's super important for me personally that I get the chance, or since I have gotten the chance in my role as a CRO to leave a mark on people, that I actually pay stuff forward. And I I change the trajectory of people's lives. That's what gets me out of bed. Because I really believe and want to believe that it would be so great if there would be generations of people that have met me professionally that based on that journey, opened their eyes to some ideas, had really great careers after, whether in management or as specialists in their field. It doesn't even matter. But if these people all in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when they're super accomplished, they had great careers all across, if they would think back, when did this start? And if they came to the conclusion and say, I think it started back when I met Ollie in Brandwatch or at VO. I think this is where I learned something. I was opened up to something, which then I took with me. And this was some foundational stuff that got me to where I am today. And I guess ultimately, when I'm thinking about, being an old man and maybe even on my deathbed, I want this room to be full of people. So like that gets me out of bed. It's not being Mother Teresa because I'm the best human on the planet. It's very selfish. I want this room to be as full of people as possible. And how do I get people to be in the room when I'm gonna pass on? It's by doing good by all of the people today, so that I increase my chances that they will pay their respects when I really need them in this room. So I think that's the essence of what drives me. That's what I'm optimizing for.
Thank you. And that's not easy to do. And I look down at that Muhammad Ali quote that we started the program off with, that line about impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given rather than to explore the power they have to change it. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about is doing your little part to change and impact people's lives, one at a time, right? And that is important to you. And guess what? The people that you attract, it's important to them too. So kudos to you. All right. Well, let's pivot a little bit. You're now at VO.
Yeah.
What does VO do? What attracted you there? What are you most excited about?
I guess it's really the category and the journey. When I started, I guess at Falcon Brandwatch, it was pretty much a startup. And then I had the privilege of growing personally, professionally, and with the company over a decade. And got the opportunity to sit at the table from the very beginning, making decisions on, like with the exec team, around where do we focus our time, resources, energy, and just being able to, I guess, have this journey with a startup one more time. I'm not gonna lie to you, the Warrens also help with like the idea of maybe this is even my last job if we get this right. And then I think the category is super exciting. SaaS management, procurements, basically all around. What do you do with all the SaaS that has been exploding throughout COVID, where people just have bought this left, right, and center? There's so many licenses that sit somewhere nobody knows exactly where. There's no real IT procurement process in most of, I guess, the mid-sized companies. Yeah. So there's a lot of optimization potential. And that's exactly what our value proposition is, to make your money back on your SaaS stack. So you don't have to lose anything off the stack, but you just get it more affordable because we can help you negotiate better deals. And I think this is, in my book, this is as a category the same as social media was a decade ago. This is something that every company will have to, I guess, absorb at some point. The early movers are already well underway, but I think it has such a power because there's savings for everybody there, that over time people will actually have license managers, and big companies already do so, SaaS managers, and really have streamlined processes around it. So we're a little bit on the forefront of all that, which makes it tough but fun to pioneer a little bit this entire space, and figure out how to gain headspace, and then also obviously scale the revenue. But in combination, full journey with a startup in a great category that I think has super much potential. That was an easy yes right there.
And I know you and the company are pretty much just starting out, um, and you're probably not looking to hire a whole bunch of salespeople yet. Um, but where can people find out more if they wanted to learn more? Because I'm sure people are listening to this and saying, "Man, I'd like, this guy seems like a pretty cool guy. I'd like to hitch my wagon to him, and I can learn from him. It sounds like I can have fun working." And they're tackling a good cause at VO. Yeah, where can people go to find out a little bit more?
So everybody obviously welcome to connect on LinkedIn with me personally. Can follow our LinkedIn page. So I guess that's the easiest. Um, we also have a website, but pretty sure that there's no open positions as you said currently. So LinkedIn is the way to go. Not quite starting out. We did our first million in AR. So the first is in the bank, just did a seed round. So it's actually all about scaling, but not going crazy on the scaling, but
Mhm.
making a good plan on where to scale and where you get the biggest bang for your buck. But yeah, it's fun days, and it's very different, I guess, to the job I had before in Brandwatch, which was a little bit more corporate, to say it like that.
Fair. So, Ollie, as we move to close here, the Coach2Scale podcast is all about building a community of people who care and value personal development. They value coaching. They
Mhm.
value coaching others and developing others, and we want to attract people who want to be coached and developed and feel life is a curious journey. People who care about that type of stuff, like you, typically had that behavior modeled for them somewhere along the way. Can
Mhm.
you talk about or provide an example of someone whose coaching has had an impact on your career? And you can go anywhere with that question.
I guess the first coaches, basically, definitely my parents. Loved them for it, just to instill what they thought were the right values in me. And I think the values that they instill very much resonate also with who I am and who I've grown over the years. And yeah, then you have the professional coaching and the mentoring, and you meet people like yourself also on the way, right? Where you have conversations about the stuff that you don't know, where you need perspective. So I think the list is long. I wouldn't be I think you can be reflected as a human, and I think that falls more natural to some of us than others. And I guess it's a gift if it's easier to look your weaknesses in the eyes, or your challenges. But in order to overcome them, I think it's really so super helpful to be coached. And this can be on closing the next deal, moving it from a pipeline stage to the next one by asking the right questions and being, enlightened about what this takes. But it also can be on the life coaching stuff, where you, I guess, having even therapists and helping you understand who you are, what your values are, and how to apply them. So yes, I think human interaction and an openness to not having to be perfect, but being on a journey and learning from others, that definitely helps me to get from A to B faster.
Hmm, makes sense. And when you think about the word coach, whether it's a real coach or a fictional character coach, who's your favorite coach?
Definitely enjoyed working with you and at your time at Sandler. Then Karen Williams, also from Melbourne, just to do a little bit of advertisement for her on like the business coach, not very subject matter specific, but around team building. Definitely also has a fantastic approach that helped me and the team a lot to see things clearer, and also especially see things where we thought we were mastering it, where we basically just failed. And again, it's about gaining perspective. And coaches are, I guess, that they play ball with you, but they challenge you. And I think this is the great dynamic. And if you're open to being challenged and actually open to learn and get new ideas, once you had the Kool-Aid, at least I had, you can't go back. And just this is a funny story. Maybe there's time for it. My very first sales manager said to me, Ollie, how good do you think you're in sales? Are you a good sales guy? I said, yes, boss, I'm the best. Okay, so from a scale from 0 to 10, how good is your demoing skills? And I said, boss man, 10.
How good is your what? Demoing?
Demoing skills of the product. I said 10, straight up. Good. So qualification skills, 0 to 10, rate yourself. Boss man, no question asked. Is a 10 again. Good. Rapport building skills, 0 to 10. How good at? I'm a 10. And then there's another category. I obviously rated myself with a 10. Then he looked me in the eye and said, you're the best salesperson on the planet. There's absolutely nothing I can do for you. You are fully accomplished. Congratulations. And I looked at him and said, but you're so much better. You close so much more deals and revenue and everything you do is better. Yeah, but I'm not a 10. I unchecked the box. So come back to me once you deliberately and consciously uncheck all those boxes. And when you have that, I'll tell you what I know. And then the coaching can start.
That's a great coach. Mm-hmm. That's a great coach right there. Nice. All right. Well, Ollie, we've covered a lot of ground here. We'll let you get on to your day. Before we do that, is there any final parting words that you have for our audience?
No, stay tuned into Matt. Only very positive and fun memories beyond the Aperol Spritz, but that also was a very nice evening, but also you couldn't find a better coach. The impact that you had on sales methodology and enlightening the team, absolutely fantastic. Love the concept, love the podcast. I'm very honored and humbled that you reached out and wanted me on the show. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Ollie. And we can leave it right there. Again, we covered a lot of ground. We talked about impossible is nothing. We talked about how to leverage vulnerability to build trust on a team. We talked about the importance of fun, right? People come to work, right? They want to make money. They want to grow professionally, but they want to have fun. And when they do, they stay longer and they work harder. And we also talked about the importance of when things aren't going well, pulling people up, not tearing people down. And so I think there's a lot of pearls of wisdom and a lot of actionable nuggets. And I thank you for that today, Ollie.
Absolutely welcome. If you want to do a repeat, just let me know. I'll be there.
All right. And for everybody watching and listening out there, thank you for doing that. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button wherever you're consuming this podcast. Most importantly, engage. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you want to see more of. We want to bring valuable content and interesting guests to you. So thank you. And until next time, coach them if you want to keep them. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Coach2Scale, How Modern Leaders Build Coaching Cultures. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at coachem.io. That's COACHEM.io. And follow us on Twitter at CoachemNow. See you all next week. Thanks for joining. And remember, coach them if you want to keep them.